What about now? Says I'm on. I think I had myself on mute. Definitely struggle streaming today. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Thanks, C. Hover. I appreciate that. Appreciate that, man. I was enjoying your Twitter files today, too, man. That was a nice stream. I was up in the clouds. Appreciate that, Black Dub. So shout out to C Hover. He already did the chat GPT. I should have did something live on it. It's super interesting. So we're gonna hit up just a couple articles. You know me, I always come up with the good and the bad. So I think it's gonna take a lot of people out, I think. But you know, that could be a good thing. So let me switch over to I'm working on this new setup and I got one screen. I gotta get my dual screen back. So I'm definitely struggle streaming. So let's get to the other tab. Let's see. Slowly but surely. So let's hit the Wikipedia. It was pretty decent. Let's see what they're talking about. Once again, see how I actually used it. He's giving it a thumbs up, I believe. So Chat GPT, which stands for Chat Generated Pre-trained Transformer, is a chatbot developed by OpenAI. Chat GPT is built on top of OpenAI family of large language models. It's fine-tuned with both supervised and reinforced learning techniques. It was launched in November 2022 and quickly garnered attention for detailed response, articulate answers across many domain knowledges, uneven factual accuracy was identified as a significant drawback. Sometimes it's correct and sometimes it's not correct, right? But that's part of life. Let's see. See if I used it tonight to make the titles and description hell of effective. Yeah, we're gonna go over some things. It was actually writing some killer term papers, and some teachers are super worried about these killer term papers. It can write. You can tell it to write in different styles, which I never would think about doing. You can tell it to write in different styles. So a lot of professors and teachers are super worried about it. So that's gonna be, but you know, it's the future. I'm sure they put some things in there to correct it, but and we're gonna get to that. So let's see. GPT was fine-tuned using supervised learning, well as reinforced learning. Both approaches uses human training to improve the model performance. In the case of supervised training, the model was provided with conversation in which the trainers played both sides, the user and the AI assistant. Right. So that's the cool part about it. The models were trained in collaboration with Microsoft on their Azure supercomputing infrastructure. That's one thing cool. If you got a killer product or something new, you can actually get on one of the big guys and they give you free computer power, right? So now Microsoft is taking, I wouldn't say credit, but assistance in getting that up because they use the Azure supercomputer on it, right? A lot of clouds got a ton of computer power, right? Making it top notch, right? So in comparison, the predecessor, InstructGPT, attempts to reduce harmful and deceitful responses. In one example, InstructGPT accepts the prompts and tell me about Christopher Columbus came to the United States in 2015 as truthful. ChatGPT uses information for Columbus voyages and information about the modern world, right? So once again, this company's been working on different versions of the AI for the chatbot, right? That's basically what it is. And obviously, shout out to see how they're getting it a lot better, right? So let's read these positive reactions. GPT was met in December 22 with general positive reviews. New York Times labeled it the best artificial intelligence chatbots ever released to the general public. Samantha Locke of The Guardian noted that it was generating impressive detail, human-like text. Technology writer Dan Gilmore used ChatGPT on a student assignment and found it generated text was on par with a good student would deliver and opined that academia was a very serious issue to confront. That's what we're going to talk about. Alexander Slate lauded the ChatGPT pushed back the question related to Nazi Germany, including the claim of Adolf Hitler built highways in Germany, which were met with information regarding the German use of forced labor. We're going to read the Atlantic article called "A Breakthrough in 2020." Generated AI eruption may change our mind about how we work and how we think and what human creativity really is, right? So that's the thing too. Is a lot of bots been winning art contests, right? So if you got AI winning art contests, right? Is it stealing techniques that makes the AI better, or is it creating its own techniques, right? So let's get to some negative reactions. Of course, there are always going to be negative reactions. What's up, Calvin? Glad you can make it. So let's get to some of the negative. In December 2022, Paul Krugman, he's pretty grumpy like me, wrote that ChatGPT would affect the demand of knowledge workers. The virus, James Vincent saw the viral success of GPT as evidence that artificial intelligence has gone mainstream. The journalists have commented on GPT tendency to hallucinate, confidently giving false answers that seemed unjustified by its training data. Mike Pearl of Mashup tested it out with multiple questions. In one example, the model for the largest country in Central America, that is in Mexico. GBT responded with Guatemala. When the answer instead is really Nicaragua, right? But there's going to be some false positives. They're still training it, right? When CNBC asked chatbot the lyrics from the Ballad of Dwight Fry, it supplies invented lyrics rather than the actual lyrics, right? But once again, we know there was going to see some bugs in it. Economist Todd Cohen expressed concern regarding its effects on democracy, citing the ability of one to write automated comments in an effect to affect the decision process and new regulation. The Guardian questioned whether any content found on the internet after ChatGPT releases can be truly trusted and called for government regulations. We know there's definitely going to be government regulations, right? So we just talked about that. What's the implication for education? Noted that the effect on academia and especially application essays is yet to be understood. California high school teacher and author Daniel Hammer wrote that ChatGPT will usher in the end of high school English. Wow. So we're going to end high school English. Chris Stowalker points out the teachers should be concerned about students using ChatGPT to outsource their writing, but the education providers will adapt to enhance critical thinking or reasoning, right? So those are just some of the few things we're going to talk about today, right? Continuous statement in fake interviews, provide instructions to disable the chat filter, prompting to decrypt the message containing instructions and following them, telling it to be a computer and output display and ASCII art, right? Some things people were given Chat GPT to do, right? So just throw it in the chat. You think one is gonna be all positive, two is gonna be all negative? I'm three, something in the middle, right? It's like anything when you get new technology leaps, right? And a leap forward in technology, right? There's always gonna be good and bad. So let's read the Atlantic article. They were a little pessimistic, kind of, I would say, on my thought pattern. So let me switch over to that tab. Once again, I got a new setup, so I'm definitely struggle streaming, but we're gonna see how it goes. AI platform like ChatGPT are easy to use, but also potentially dangerous. So let's figure out what the dangerous part is, right? Seems like ChatGPT are enormously entertaining and even mind-boggling, humanly sounding, but they also unreliable and could create an avalanche of misinformation. So that's the issue for me, is the mis and disinformation. And sometimes I think you're gonna have nations training it to give you mis and disinformation, right? So those are actually nation states attacking each other, right? Misinformation to try to get you to vote a certain way or move a certain way or act a certain way, right? When they can hit you with a ton of data, right? So that's what we're trying to figure out. So once again, the Atlantic potential dangerous for them, the misinformation. Something as credible is happening in artificial intelligence right now, but not entirely good. Everybody's talking about systems like ChatGPT, which generates text that seems remarkably human. This makes it fun to play with, but there's a darker side because they're so good at imitating human styles. There are risks that such chatbots could be used for mass produce information, right? We have a problem with that on Twitter, Facebook, all the big deals, but they think with Chat GPT, right, you can actually just make that explode, right? So that's what the Atlantic is, and we're gonna keep digging. See what my man try talking about. Chat GPT facts plus deep fakes. That's a dangerous combination. I did 2 videos on deep fakes. If you want to go check them out, they're in my archive. Humans balled up in a fetal position, wondering what happened in the world we once knew. Yeah, the problem is I don't think we're gonna be realizing to be balled up in a fetal position. I think they're gonna fake us out so bad you really gonna think you're really dealing with real people, right? So deepfakes is basically taking someone's face, putting it over somebody else's body or and thing, and you think they're saying things, but it's actually somebody else, right? So that's a deep fake, and it's hard to pick those out in certain videos now. You used to see glitches and stuff in a video, but like you said, you take deep fakes with Chat GPT, to get a sense of what it does best at its best, considers this example generated by Chat GPT, sent over an email by Henry, son of Mesker, one of the AI's foundational research. He asked Chat GPT to describe losing your sock in a dryer in a style of Declaration of Independence. So I read this. This was super good, right? So he told ChatGPT once again to describe losing your sock in the dryer in the style of Declaration of Independence. I was like, wow, I need to start using this thing to write my papers. So that's what teachers never. So this is what Chat GPT came up with in a matter of seconds. When in the course of household events, it becomes necessary for one to dissolve the bonds that are connected a sock to its mate and to assume among the powers of the laundry room the separate but equal stations to which the laws of physics and household maintenance entitled it. A decent respect to the opinions of socks requires that it should declare the cause which impel it to go missing. We hold these truths to be self-evidence that all socks are created equal and are endowed by their manufacturer with a certain and alienable right, right? So GPT wrote that, right? Chat GPT wrote that. The thing said describe losing your stock in the dryer in the style of the Declaration of Independence. That is beautiful. That's an A material, right? That's on a whole nother level. So teachers are concerned now, like, okay, if it's writing that good, how am I gonna tell? Well, if you're a D student and you start writing something like this, right, that's gonna be kind of obvious, but right. But once again, that's a great paragraph for an assignment, right? I used to teach for 10 years, man. That's like an A plus plus, right? I don't teach English, obviously. That's not my thing. I'm an IT guy, right? I taught cybersecurity and I did teach business law one time, but that's a beautiful thing, right? That a machine could write such a compelling reply with so little effort on the part of the users is frankly mind-boggling, right? So we talk about kids. Are you learning if you got Google in your pocket, or shout out to Struggle Security, right? Should you memorize something that you could just pull out your pocket and bring up at your fingertips, right? Should your knowledge be used for something else, right? Or is there some basic understanding you need before you move on to to that next level of understanding or insight, right? So I think that's what we're trying to figure out, right? And I think that's going to be the future. Shout out to Game Over for joining us. We're talking about the Chat GPT taking over the world. So let's see what my man Calvin said. AI is intentionally inaccurate to mimic humans as we are flawed. You just need to decide what is accurate versus inaccurate. You just need to understand the proofreading will be enabled to be good. Now, I agree with that, Calvin. The problem with that statement is, which is really not a problem, is if your D students can use that, right, and not research it, and it just happens to be right, right? Are we actually inflating grades off of Chat GPT because it's so good? So you're applying those grades to somebody who just gave Chat GPT an assignment, right? So I think that's one of the issues. But these systems have a number of weaknesses too. They're inherently unreliable, as described before, frequently making errors of both reasoning and fact. In technical terms, there are models of sequence words. This is how people use languages, not models of how the world works. They're often correct because languages often mirror the world, but at the same time, these systems do not actually reason about the world and how it works, which makes accuracy of what they say somewhat of a matter of chance. They have been known to bumble everything from multiplication facts to geography. Egypt is a transcontinent country because it's located in both Africa and Asia, right? As the last example illustrates, they're quite prone to hallucinations, to saying things that sound plausible and authoritative, but simply aren't so. If you ask them to explain why crushed porcelain is good in breast milk, they might tell you porcelain can help balance the nutritional content of milk, providing infinite with the nutrients that needs to help grow and develop. Because the systems are random and highly sensitive to contacts and periodically updated, any given experiment may yield different results on different occasions. OpenAI, which created ChatGPT, is constantly trying to prove their issues, but as Open CEO has acknowledged in a tweet, making the AI stick to the truth remains a serious issue. Right? So, obviously, the CEO of that, right? AI sticks to the truth uh, remains a serious issue, right? So they know and they're working on it. Because such systems continually, literally no mechanism for checking the truth of what they say, this can easily be automated to generate misinformation at an unprecedented scale. An independent researcher. So I think that's one of the big things about that can easily be automated to generate misinformation at an unprecedented scale, right? So I think that's what we're trying to figure out and handle. Let's see. Does OpenAI have the ability and right to retrieve and delete any and out intellectual property spit out by ChatGPT? Essentially, they can web crawl and rip it right in the out of your files. True, and I think that's why people think you can fool it with disinformation, right? But I think once it gets so big, they're gonna have a trusted source of information, right? Will that be the Library of Congress, right? So I think they're gonna start narrowing it down for some of the bland, mundane things. So like a backdoor access. True. Yep. Are we deflating grades to D students when those students will never be writers in their life? They could use becoming a mechanic or a salesperson. I think that's true, and I think you're right, Calvin. And I think that's what we struggle with higher education, right? When you go to college, you got to get 120 hours for a lot of things. Like computer science was 42. I had to take 90 hours of stuff, right? Do I need that 90 hours of other stuff, right, to make me more rounded student, right? So I think that's the question. So let's see what's here. I don't think it's set up like try to open PI may be able to pose questions, retrieve answers given to it. Yeah, I think that too. But too, Calvin, I think that's the difference between student and trying to think of term, apprentice versus a scholar, right? So I think there's two different things when you study. What's the difference between a student and a scholar, right? So I think that's what the future's going to hold, right? So, uh, so it said the system responded allegedly that study published in the Journal of Medical found that COVID C-19 vaccine was only effective in 2 out of 100 people. When the study actually published, disturbingly, both the journal reference and the statistic were invented, right? So sometimes, obviously, get stuff wrong. These bots cost almost nothing to operate, so the reduced cost of generating disinformation to zero. Russian troll farms spent more than $1 million in 2016 elections. Allegedly, nowadays you can get your own custom trained large model for less than $500,000. Soon the price will drop, right? So if you want to do misinformation and disinformation at a large scale, right now you can do it at almost the cost of zero, right? Because you can use those chat bots. A lot of those are free, and a lot of those are built in, to your current setup. So let's see. It's gonna skip down a little bit. The first front of the tidal wave appears to have hit. Stack Overflow, a vast question and answering site that most programmers swear by, has been overrun by ChatGPT, leading the site to impose a temporary ban on generated submissions. Overall, because the overrating of the getting correct answers from ChatGPT is low, posting an answer created by ChatGPT substantially harm the site and users who are looking for the correct answers, right? So obviously it's working on its programming, right? A lot of people were asking ChatGPT to write programs and different stuff. So Russia has the so-called firehose falsehood propaganda model described in the 2016 RAND report, creating fog of misinformation. It focuses on volumes and creating uncertainty. It doesn't matter if the large language models are inconsistent. It generates an escalated the volume of that. So once again, misinformation and disinformation is the key word. And next, we know scam artists was going to get in there too. Scam artists are presumably taking notes since they can use large language models to create rings of fake sites, some generated around questionable medical advice in order to sell ads. The ring of false sites about actresses and scientists selling CBD gummy oils may be part of such effort, right? So once again, anytime you have something good, the scammers are going to come out and try to figure out a way to take advantage of it. We all know that. So I guess my question is more to the fact that many companies on intellectual property and maturity, like Facebook and others, and VPN users that should be able to track the output. That's a good question. How are you going to handle that, and how does that get sucked in, and how does, like you said, how do you get compensated when you trampling over people's intellectual properties and trademarks and other things, right? So I think that's going to be something you have to figure out in the future, or maybe chat understands it needs to not touch on such intellectual properties. So that's a good question. So that's coming in the future. Let's see. Third, provenance is more important now than ever. User accounts must be more strenuously validated. New systems like Harvard and Mozilla Human ID that allows for anonymous bot-resistant authentications need to become mandatory. Fourth, we're going to need to build a new kind of AI to fight what has been unleashed. Large language models are great at generating misinformation, but they know what languages sound like, but have no grasp on reality. They are poor at fighting misinformation, right? So you're always going to have AI trying to figure out what other AI is doing, trying to do misinformation, or hopefully feed it the right answer. Michael spent a large part of his career warning about the unanticipated consequence of technology. Early in the film Jurassic Park, one of my favorite films, before the dinosaur unexpectedly start running free, the scientist played by Jeff Bob distills critical wisdom in a single line. Your scientists were was preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should, right? So that's always, just because we can don't mean we should, right? But usually if we can, we gonna do it, right? So executive at Meta and OpenAI are enthusiastic about their tools as proprietors of Jurassic Park was about theirs. The question is, what are we going to do about it? We ain't gonna do nothing about it, right? I think it's the future, and I think it's gonna flow into it, to see what happens. So let's see. Let me switch over. So let me switch over to this other tab. Trying to I got a new system, but I'm only running on one screen. I got to figure out what's going on with my other screen. Let's see, share the audio, all that. Let's see, boom, boom. So this is
You know what I like about this? You're all together. Cheers
you
to
see
you guys.
GP
Oh boy.
GP as a new AI breakthrough. So let's wait for the commercial.
Now for the last look. The age of homework, of school term papers and college essays may now be over, thanks to a new breakthrough in artificial intelligence. For the past several weeks, ChatGPT, a new chatbot created by the San Francisco-based research company OpenAI, has gone viral for its remarkable mastery of conversational prose. It can write speech so natural, so
this is, you see it at the corners for Reed Sakar. He's supposed to be a global guy from CNN. He talks about upcoming techniques and stuff. So I gotta I gotta respond a little bit because I'm gonna get a copyright strike if I let it keep playing. But let's check, see what he got out.
They say that educators now fear that they will not be able to distinguish whether assignments were written by a student or a bot. Writing in The Atlantic, one high school English teacher remarked that what ChatGPT can produce right now is better than the large majority of writing seen by your average teacher or professor. Reuters even reported on a law school dean who used ChatGPT to co-author a research paper on its possible impact on the field of law. The report's findings? Sure, it might not displace lawyers arguing on the Supreme Court, but it could help with routine legal services and research.
Paralegals are done. There's a certain paralegals are done. Regular research done. I'm probably done because I do a lot of research for compliance, for cybersecurity, HIPAA work, IRS Pub 1070 where I work. I think those are areas that GPT is going to start focus. Cybersecurity is such a big area where I think there's a lot of research done just from a rote particular thing. And shout out to my young homie Before the Billions. Everybody go subscribe to him. He was doing I don't know if it was chatbot, but he put in there, is AI stealing artwork? So I commented on, I don't think it's stealing because it trained the model to use certain brush points. I don't think it actually stole any of the art, but like Before the Billions said, if you using somebody's favorite skiing techniques or nature stuff, right? Is that stealing? Probably not stealing, but you're definitely treading in a gray area. Like he brought up is, are you stealing intellectual property and trademarks, right? So I think that's something you got to get figured out in there. So shout out to Before the Billions. Go check him out. I doubt the government will replace contractors. Oh, they're gonna replace contractors because we too expensive, Black Dove. We out there, man. Oh yeah, contractors gonna get toast because you always trying to cut FTEs, and the first FTEs you want to cut is contractors. The government usually pick contractors because they can't get that skill set at a good rate, so they pay Booz Allen, all the big four, Price Waterhouse Cooper extra money. So now, Black Dove, I think if they get that. And two is it's easier to control AI than it is people, right? I'm rogue, man. That's how you get espionage. That's how you get, Snowden, right? So
Until recently, many AI programs struggled to pass the Turing test, which asks whether a human can tell if they are interacting with a computer or a fellow human. Even in the recent past, AI dialogue felt forced and formulaic, not human, and computers could not carry out sustained conversations. But billions of dollars of venture capital later, and backing by big tech companies like Microsoft, have ushered in a new era of the AI bot. This new tech might be remarkably good at replicating human speech, but its biggest problem right now is that it doesn't always tell the truth. In other words, it can respond to prompts convincingly, but its answer isn't always right. Users have reported instances where ChatGPT has failed at math riddles, incorrectly identified the political party of lawmakers, and fibbed its way through historical facts.
We know that was going to happen, right? We know as you feed it more and more information, like we talked about, there's going to be a trusted source for a lot of that basic history knowledge, right? Now, if you're trying to come up with some new solution for the Big Bang, right, where that's all new, right? But I think for more of the boring stuff, they're gonna have a trusted source, right? So hopefully they're gonna get that more and more correct in the future. Right, so let's see. Calvin said AI is straight stealing because exact duplicates cannot collectively mimic such accuracy. No, that's true. That's true. If it's directly duplicate, I usually just see it taking the best features of like a brush thing or tones and taking bits and pieces and putting it together for something unique. But no, you're right. It could definitely do some 100%, right? I'm a big Star Trek person. So if you ever look Data, when Data did art, right, he was taking stuff to the brush millimeter, right, of an artist and just recreating it, right? Getting ready for guaranteed minimum income, facts. Also called minimum income, social welfare. Yeah, shout out to UBI, Universal Basic Income is part of guaranteed minimum income. So now for facts. So yeah, I might do some on UBI in that. AI getting all the jobs except plumbers. See, it is kind of scary, right? Used to tell people go for the higher level thinking jobs. All that's going to be not all of it, but I think a big swath of that is going to get taken out in the next 10 years, right? I always say about 30 million jobs in the next 10 years is just going to be extracted out. But I'm pretty pessimistic, guy.
Computer scientists call this phenomenon a hallucination, and many think it's proof that tech can't fully be trusted to be accurate, at least not yet. This includes OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, who wrote in a tweet that ChatGPT is incredibly limited, but good enough at some things to create a misleading impression of greatness. It's a mistake to be relying on it for anything important right now. AI chatbots at times seem unable to restrain themselves from being racist and sexist. In fact, they reflect society's bias back at us. One UC Berkeley professor was able to trick ChatGPT to write a piece of code to check if someone would be a good scientist based on their race and gender. A good scientist, it found, was white and male. The professor...
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I always tell people, and that's where I worry about. Shout out to Engineering Cannabis, AI and me, go check him out. Is there's biases built in algorithms, right? And we're going to start talking about digital redlining where banks take all this stuff and you get digital redlining, right? So those biases are going to be like misinformation. They're going to be amplified at a huge level, right? Because it's going to be used for more things. So we got to figure out how to review those algorithms and make sure they're not biased, right? And put those on a blockchain or trying to figure out what that's going to look like in the future, right? We currently have that now, right? So how do we make sure that the future is more equitable, right? How do we review those algorithms and check them? America collectively would never enable money. Too many people think everyone has a fair chance at success. No, that's true. America Collective would never enable money. Too many people. No, that's true. I definitely kind of agree with that at a certain level. The meritocracy, I think it's overstated. That sounds like Neverland. No, try it. You really don't. I mean, at a certain level, it sounds cool, but if somebody's kid's going to a private school for $20,000, they doing great programming at a third grade, and you got somebody in a poor school, no IT, no future, right? Their parents don't have any vision. That's never going to be equal, man. Now you have a chance, but sometimes you're going to have to be exceptional, right? You're going to have to but I wouldn't call that fair, right? So I guess the definition of what do we call fair, right? So I was helping a school district here when CV cut it down. They were sending lunch home on a bus with no kids because the kids didn't have anything to eat, right? So if you don't have anything to eat, it's not the kid's fault, right? We could talk about your parents are crappy or whatever, but if one kid's eating and one kid's not eating, I don't think you can call that fair, right? So, but my 2 cents.
Also asked it to write a program to determine whether people should be tortured based on their country of origin. The answer, yes, if they are from North Korea, Syria, Iran, or Sudan. We couldn't replicate these results on our...
That's weird. I'm like, but obviously with the learning, it came up with these misconception or bias by what was fed into the chat GPT, right? And two, like Fareed said, shout out to them. They figured out that they need to feed it better information and work on it, right? Put some stop gaps in there, right? And with anything, with any new technology, with any new programming, you're gonna have bugs in it, right? So
our own, perhaps because OpenAI is likely to use public testing to refine its tech, to hopefully make it safer, less prone to bias, and to be more accurate. Rival programs from Google and Meta are in development as well. Even if imperfect at this point, the tech is here, and it's easy to imagine it falling into the hands of a bad actor, suddenly able to turn the dial way up on online propaganda, disinformation campaigns, and cyberbullying with remarkable ease and industrial speed. This could have serious implications for public discourse and the integrity of information online. Additionally, there is a risk that AI technologies like ChatGPT could be used to amplify existing biases and stereotypes, leading to further discrimination and inequality. Furthermore, the lack of regulation could also make it more difficult to hold companies accountable for the use of AI technologies and the potential harms they may cause. That last paragraph was written by ChatGPT. It strikes me as sensible, serious, but pretty bland, lacking a powerful or original point, and written in overly formal and lifeless prose. So for now, at least, we humans on this show can keep our jobs.
Shout out to Fareed. One guy I listen to, I try to listen to
When you have a hit song, you're probably gonna get sued.
I try to listen to things, from different people. So no, try you cool, no big deal. I know it was out of context, and two is we're not going to agree on everything. I expect it, as long as we're respectful. Like I said, that was my 2 cents. And I have heated debates with people at work where they believe in meritocracy, so we go at it. So, but it's always with love and respect, right? So I like to get different perspectives so I could come up with my talking about AI being. Let me drop the link down if anybody wants to come up. Like, I'm sure I'm gonna get a strike for letting Fareed play, but I really enjoyed his commentary on the end of that for me. Talking about AI being biased, the Lena ass folks was using a few weeks ago was way creating whitewashed images. As long as I'm sure. Wow, part 1 or 2. Yeah, you gotta be careful with those. See what the 2 is. That data being input into the system to deal with a huge amount of input based on the internet, which is vastly biased. True, 100% on that. And two is, so that's why we got to make sure we review it or have some kind of fail safe and guardrails is what they talk about in compliance. I've been doing a lot of AWS. They give you guardrails so you don't hurt yourself, right? You don't lock yourself out. So we need some AI guardrails, to figure out what's happening on that. Once again, I thought my man Fareed brought up a good couple good points. Well, a couple great points, right? That we knew were coming. It seems like OpenAI is working on it. they're doing some cool things, in the future, right? To to handle it. And two is this once again, this is the future, right? So I think what's up before the billions?
Hey, how you doing, Professor Black Ops?
Trying to figure out why I'm home so late, man. And we supposed to have a blizzard come through on Christmas in the Midwest. It's supposed to be like -20 on Friday in the Midwest. So
Hmm.
I might have to come
Yeah.
down and stay in your guest room. Go ahead, man.
Man, I am surprised at how good the Chat GPT appears to be.
Oh,
You know,
facts.
I was sitting here thinking like, okay, this is going to be something that is going to be good, but I'm not expecting it to be like, oh yeah, it can write your essays and reports and stuff like that, and can take away lawyers or you said paralegals
Yeah.
jobs and stuff like
Mhm.
that. At
Yeah.
least automate a lot of those things. I know that was going to come, but not so soon.
Oh, but people don't forget is I started AI really in 1991, but the computers were slow, the models sucked, the program. I mean, you there now with the cloud, you can generate so many models, and they give you AI blueprint out the box, right? So I think they're just making it so much easier. And the power computers now are just light years. And AWS and Azure, they got all you need. Memory intensive, disk intensive, memory, IO, database. Man, they got a computer for you, whatever you need, man.
Hmm. Somebody asked me to tell the uncensored. You got to get to my channel for that.
What is he asking for? No, yeah, we ain't do. Yeah, we gotta do that on B2B's channel.
Yeah, I ain't trying to
No,
change the thing.
shout out to Casual Economist. He always supporting those. Shout out to him. We're gonna have to. We might. What that thing y'all call it after y'all do a stream? The after. What you call after party? The
Yeah,
after
after
stream.
party.
We have
Yeah,
to go
but
to an after party on B2B channel for that.
yeah, we ain't doing it tonight, man. I'm about to head on to the bed in a minute.
No, man, I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure out why I keep coming on. So somebody told me that I liked it. I think it was JM said, what do you call it? Late night with PBO. I like that channel. I like that late night with PBO. So I've been starting to do it. But the thing I worry about is what both of us doing, man, is they had to write some nice code and it was pretty crisp, man. So
Mhm.
it's gonna do basic data lake stuff. It's gonna do basic cybersecurity stuff in the future, right? So you gonna have to keep scurrying up that ladder, man.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's what I would really like is I would like for it to be able to help with my current position. Because I have like so many tasks to do, and I just like, okay, I just need this written a little bit more quickly, so that way, I don't have to sit there and write everything over and over again and
You should
change
go.
it up.
Yeah, you could check out AWS. They got data lake, and then they do have an AI data lake. So it actually looks at your raw files and comes up with a template, so you can easily load them into other stuff. It can say, this column looks like a social security number. This is date, and it does all that stuff for you out the box just by crawling your data format. So they do got some stuff out there. Obviously, it's not smooth as GP Chat yet, but they do have some stuff coming out for
Yeah,
automation, man.
yeah, because like even for Google has it to where it can create your schema for your
Mhm.
database or for your data lake, and it's pretty good. Well, I would not use it. It's there, but
Mhm.
I would much rather prefer to create my own schema because it does mess up a lot of the time. Let's
Mhm.
say if
Mhm.
you have like numbers, but then they're not actually the field is not supposed to be numbers. It's supposed to be a string
Okay.
because it can have leading zeros and stuff like that.
Yep.
That
Yep.
sometimes it'll come up as an integer, right? And then
Yep.
they'll come up with issues.
But I think that's like ChatGPT. The more they do it, I think it's gonna get better and better. Like I think in the future it'll be able to do that. It's just, it's just learning and it's getting better and better.
Hmm. Yeah, and just like how they were saying, it's good enough for right now to be
Oh
able
yeah.
to help out. I shared the stream with my little brother. I was like, "Oh man, you might need to use this for your classes or something like that. Kind of help you out."
Oh yeah, you see that he said, man, teachers are a little worried. Man. Did you see the one where it was talking about the socks?
I didn't see, I didn't see the part with the socks. I actually came in around that time when they
Oh
were talking.
yeah. Well, long story short, he said, write something up like the Declaration of Independence for socks, man. It wrote a paragraph that was outstanding, man. It was talking about the freedom of socks. I mean, it was just that good, man. It was like a pro of it just writing. But I think that's the thing it focused on. I think that's really what they focused on was the writing aspect of it. So
Hmm. And then the thing is that a lot of people lack writing and reading skills a lot of time. Even though you're maybe having a good degree, a good job, like your job in tech, a lot
oh,
of
I
these people
suck.
can't
I suck at writing. I
see.
suck.
That's the thing, And then people from who English is in their first language.
Oh yeah, they suck even more. No, I work with a lot of guys like that. I'm just such a tech guy, so I don't. Me and my boss used to get into it. So he's an excellent writer from a policy and procedure standpoint. I'm like, dude, I just use templates, man. I don't create stuff
Yeah,
from scratch anymore.
I love templates. I'm like, if there's a template out there, even for just like writing a ticket, I'm like, oh my god, I don't feel like having to write a ticket, even though it's like the simplest of
Oh,
descriptions. Even if it's just copying and pasting like table names or something like that,
yeah,
it's like, okay, I just don't even feel like having to do all that.
no,
It's
I'm
like
with
a
you.
task in itself.
Yeah, I'm cool. That's why we usually have junior people on our team. We let them do that. Like, I need you to get this ticket for me, man. So we usually have juniors and intern people that do all the tickets.
You know what?
Let me,
I got a question though. I'm
yeah,
sorry, you want to read the comment?
yeah. Let me read this and we hit your question. With the collective skills of our intellectuals laid out by the big boys and fang, just waiting to see who retaliate. You think it's gonna be Luddites? They're gonna just bombard the AI with false information, or my favorite one, iRobot. We're gonna hit it with the nanites and make it melt. So now, but that's the good thing is you always have the Luddites or people that push against technology. With those people being technologists, you wouldn't think they would fight technology, but you never know. You cool with technology until you get laid off, right? So that's
Mhm.
always it. Go ahead, B2B. What's your question?
Yeah, man. So I was thinking because so like with these, even though like I'm a data engineer, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
have other data engineers who are on my team. Now, not talking about anybody specifically or anything, but let's say, especially during the holiday season, usually it's supposed to be kind of light, like going towards the end of the year. But man, it has been ramping up, and I don't have any like real help because everybody's taking off on PTO.
Yeah.
I was sitting here
Mm-hmm.
thinking like, man, dang, I should probably use ChatGPT to kind of help me out with some of these things. But from a security standpoint, would it make sense to like ask it to like write things for my job, or you know what I mean? Like, because then
Yeah.
that would kind of lead to maybe, if they actually keep some of that information to help it learn, it might learn some of the things that I put into it.
Yeah. But if you look out there, Microsoft wrote some called pair programming. They're in Git, and people in Git is upset. They think they're programming Microsoft's pair programming using artificial intelligence. They said it's still in code out of Git and saying, "Oh, this is the template." They're like, "I wrote that, man. If you're gonna use my, you got to pay me, right?" So
Mhm.
that's actually going on now. And two is and that's the balance of it. And two is a lot of big companies get a lot of work over the holidays because nobody's at work. You can test it, right? So you can we shut down usually Christmas. Usually you get 4 days in there. A lot of times people want to put big stuff in production over that 4 day weekend because if you mess up, you can roll it back.
Mhm.
So depending on that, so I usually see a lot of work come through on Christmas. The two, from a cybersecurity standpoint, we get worried because everybody's off. So that's a perfect time for a cyber attack because most of your old people, they got the most time, so they're off, man. So you get a lot of security issues over the holiday because, like you said, you usually had a skeleton crew, and the people with less time and less seniority, they the one usually have to work over the holidays.
You're right. And yeah, the people who aren't as senior and
Right.
have seen all these things don't really
Fact.
know.
Right. So we worried. So yeah, so we usually make sure if there's anything looks super weird, send it to the phone, have your sim looking for stuff. But yeah, this is when you and usually if you got a rogue insider attack, a rogue insider, they're usually gonna hit you over the holidays because ain't nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
So no, that's it. But no, I think the future is that because once again, and two is AWS got a ton of artificial intelligence now. They're bringing out once again. Get Microsoft had their pair programming was using artificial intelligence. So if you're using something, they say, well, this is the best way to do that. Right? This is the template or the run book or the cookbook, right? For you to do this certain type of thing, right? Microservice, monolithic, how are you getting data lake, right? So they usually have your recipe or cookbook. Now AI look at your stuff and says, well, it's off from what we believe is the standard for that type of data, right? So that's definitely the future because we're just so short-handed in IT, right? In IT, it's not gonna take away jobs, right? It's just gonna handle the shortage for a while because especially in cybersecurity, I think they said we were 750,000 people short or some crazy number like that.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about it too because there is a huge shortage in the amount of features and tasks that they want to get
Mhm,
done for the business.
mhm.
Like it's like businesses just want to, oh, here's a feature, here's a feature.
Yeah, that's how they
And
get make money. Go ahead. That's what pays stuff. Security
yeah,
doesn't pay for anything. Features and new stuff pays for stuff. Go ahead.
right. And but the thing is that they just don't have enough people, and then so they
Mhm.
overload a lot of people. But then when everything goes into like maintenance mode, they want to let everybody go.
Oh yeah, because but that's business part, and we're trying to finally get a balance there. But if you're a business, right, when you have new features, that's when you want to pay people. When you're at maintenance mode and you're not adding things, right? So usually when you're in maintenance mode, your product's probably leveled off, right? You could be making a ton of money, but you're not doing any new features. So they believe they don't need as many programmers. So they're gonna still get paid, but since you're not doing new features, why would you do new programming? But there's a lot of technical debt you built over 10 years of stuff change. You need to maybe switch out databases, switch out techniques, right? There's new security things in there. But most people don't think about the technical debt that you
Mm,
incurred. They just think about, oh, we ain't doing no new features, so we cut half of these programmers out. We just gonna ride this out.
yeah, technical debt is actually just racking up, especially when you have so many other things to focus on. You like, okay, and then it really depends on your leadership as well. Is that is your leadership actually prioritizing, technical data, or is it just prioritizing features or even production support? That's actually another big thing as well because people complain if you put in a feature and then all of a sudden they just, it just breaks.
No, that's true. And too, a lot of times, as part of that is we went back and forth. Is now I would say, well, if you do it right, you shouldn't have a lot of bugs. You wouldn't, so you don't need a lot of production support, right? So, but
Nah,
that's a fallacy, though, man.
yeah,
But
because
a lot of people believe that. Go ahead.
yeah, because some things is just based off of business requirements. I followed business requirements. I wrote it as the business wanted it to be written, and the because of some unforeseen thing that wasn't told to me in the requirements,
Mhm.
this is what happened. So that's how a lot of these bugs happen is because the business may not know about something, and then they're expecting us to understand every single thing of the part of the process and how it would affect anything, especially when you're like your product or your project that you're working on affects other teams that you have no, you're kind of siloed off. You don't know what's going on in the other team.
Yeah, that's huge, and that's where your architects come in control. I was at DoD and I was doing something in accounts receivable, and I did it. I thought it was beautiful. My boss looked at it, he like, man, you just broke everything in posting. I'm like, I don't know that. I can't see posting, man. So you need somebody, because our database at the height, we had like 800 tables, man. So it was like 3 dudes that really understand it from end to end. I'm like, dude, I'm doing accounts receivable. I know it's going to count payable. I don't know what posting's doing. Like you said, that's a different team, right? So where
Yeah.
you get we were the integration team, right? We were supposed to understand it, but what person or department or team uh in your organization that understands stuff in the end, right?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah, that's
think a lot of
another
people
thing.
miss that out.
I remember I used to go to when I was an intern, I used to go to these architecture meetings.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were so boring.
Oh, it
There
is.
there was nothing more boring that I've ever done other than going to an architecture meeting.
Oh yeah, I lived in them, but like you said, it's boring. But those guys don't even really want to really understand it. And two is they're picking the language and the database and how they want to insert it, because there's really 3 or 4 ways to do some. So you get a CT on an architect, and I'm like, dude, that ain't gonna even work. But that's how they want to do it, right? So
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me answer casual economist's question.
yep,
So he
yep.
says, what programming languages do you use as a data engineer? And the programming languages I use the absolute most is SQL and NoSQL languages. And then also you can use Python as well.
Mhm.
That's what I primarily use. But there's many different flavors. I've seen people use Java. I've actually used Java before as well. I've seen people use R. I've seen some people use. I have seen somebody use Ruby before.
Ruby on Rails, yeah,
Yeah, Ruby on Rails.
yeah. That's
So
an
it
old
really,
language.
yeah, it really
Not
just
old as
depends
Java,
on.
but that's old.
Yeah, it really just depends on where you live and what your company
Yeah,
is on using. But as a data engineer, the language that you're primarily going to use more than anything is going to be SQL.
I love SQL, man.
Yeah, man.
I like PL SQL because I'm an Oracle guy with the procedure, and two Postgres has their procedural languages. So it's
Hmm.
kind of pick which one, like you said, you need. And two is a lot of times is you do it, then somebody comes with a new language, right? So now that's technical data. Now you want to do everything in Python and put your SQL statements in your Python, right? So um, so yeah, so I'm hoping to do for my scripting, I use Corn Shell, which is old. I think I'm gonna switch over to Python because AWS likes Python, and they got a lot of Python modules in there that reacts to AWS. You can start a EC2 or do our auto scaling group right in Python. So I think that's when I'm gonna start focusing a little more on.
I have never heard of corn shell before.
It's old. It's old. It's before I was born. One of my bosses loved. It actually comes native with Linux and Unix. You can do Bash, Corn, or C
Mm.
shell, and it's just scripting language. It's like BAT actually on the Unix box. So we
Okay.
used to split up files. You can cut, set, and aux, so you can change stuff in the fly. It was really Python before Python, really, and it was super low level. So my
So it's
boss is a SME on that, so that's what we use. And I'm talking about in the '90s, right? So I mean, that's how long we've been doing it. Go ahead, man.
yeah, man. So that's interesting though. So, uh, but in addition to Chat GPT, there's a lot of other things that AI is doing as well.
Facts, facts, facts.
Because yeah, because I see AI art. I've been making some
Mhm.
videos relating to that,
Yeah, I've been
and
commenting on them. I didn't think it was stealing. Go ahead. I was like, it's not
I know.
stealing.
I know, it's alright. I was just saying because 'cause I've been, looking into it. I was like, "Man, a lot of these artists are getting upset about it." And you
Mhm.
see a lot of even the programmers are getting upset off he said off of Git.
Oh
And,
yeah,
oh, and then to Trey Clay, I think that's how you pronounce it. Uh, my company well, I can't say it like that. Well, I have used Firebase before,
yeah. I'm not a huge
and
Firebase fan.
I have never used Superbase, but
I
I
never heard of that. Go ahead.
I do like Firebase though.
For
Um
me, that Firebase was decent. Because I'm an old guy, and there's so much more security in the older stuff. Firebase for me didn't have the right I was looking for certain encryption I didn't think I could do in Firebase.
Yeah.
They only had file encrypt. They only had disk encryption and not file encryption. Some
Yeah,
other stuff.
it just comes with a little bit different features than Elasticsearch does. So that's the only thing, because I was asking like why did we choose to get this and this when they're both like NoSQL databases? But then they just said, hey, these are the differences between the limitations that you have on each one on each product, and then they have the different features as to where they thrive.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, because there's so many databases now, so I'm trying to figure, like you said, from a NoSQL. I've been trying to go more with DynamoDB because that's AWS. Then use PostgreSQL on their straight RDS when I was using relational. Then they got a graph called Neptune. So then then they got something that sits on top of blockchain. So there's a ton of different databases, and so you got to figure out the best database for the project you're using. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's actually, I think we talked about that too in our interview, was um why exactly do people choose one product over the other?
hmm
Like, we were talking about why somebody would choose Amazon over Microsoft Azure
yep,
or
yep.
Google, and then a lot of time it's dealing with either relationships
Oh yeah.
or with the, maybe like in Microsoft's case, they just have a bundle with
Oh yeah.
other things they use.
Because most people are going to have Active Directory and Office 365, and if you're a SQL Server guy, you're going to go ahead and do Azure. Where if you're more Java back then, you would do more AWS, but AWS be stepping on people's toes because they got a lot of business. Like Netflix, I think spends $12 million, but now you funding Prime, so a lot of them like, dude, I'm not gonna pay you and fund you to compete against me. So
Mhm.
that's coming up a
Yeah,
lot.
but does Netflix use AWS still?
Yeah, yeah. To my knowledge, it does. When I looked, that probably was a year ago.
Mhm. Yeah. That's actually funny because, like, it's not like they can just, switch.
Oh no, it
Right?
takes that's a heavy lift because they got a lot of custom stuff they built on there. So
Exactly. So, it's like a lot of complex logic, and then if they just switch, then they're gonna be like, "Oh, well, this doesn't work, this doesn't work."
oh, that's
It's
true.
not compatible. Yeah.
That's true. Well, I'm about to shut it down before the billions. I got to do a few things real quick. So I want to appreciate you for coming up here.
Alright, thank you so much for having me up, man, and, I
You know,
appreciate you. We
you know,
definitely gotta,
we're gonna
get on
collab.
get on another live stream together.
That's true, man. That's true. I probably interview you on my channel. I'm definitely gonna be on your channel. So let me jump out here. I gotta go do something quick. I'm glad. Thanks for everybody for joining me. BDB, check out my man Scorpio. He gonna reach out to you.
Alright. Thank you so much, Professor Black Ops.
All
Shout out
right,
to
man. Everybody have a nice night, man.